The grand hall of the Valari High Council shimmered with cold blue light. The air felt heavy, sterile, and perfect, just as the Valari liked it. Every corner of the chamber was polished, every sound measured, every movement rehearsed. Logic ruled here. Emotion was weakness. Princess Alindra Valar, heir to the Valari throne, stood at the center of the hall, her tall frame wrapped in silver ceremonial robes. Her pale eyes, sharp and calculating, showed no emotion. Inside, however, a quiet storm brewed. She was about to do something no Valari had done in thousands of years. Marry a human. Across the galaxy, the human coalition and the Valari Union had been on the edge of war for decades. Skirmishes in the border system, spy accusations, trade blockades, it was endless. Both sides wanted peace, but no one trusted the other enough to take the first step. Until now, the Valari Council had decided a marriage alliance. To Alindra, it was absurd. Humans were emotional, chaotic, unpredictable creatures. They sang, shouted, cried, laughed, and fought for reasons no logic could explain. To tie her noble bloodline to one of them felt like humiliation. Yet duty demanded obedience. Counselor Zerath, the eldest among them, stepped forward. His voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. "Princess Alindra Valar," he said, "this union ensures the stability of our species. You must proceed with honor." She bowed slightly, though her heart rebelled. "I understand, Counselor," she replied. "If this is the will of the Union, then I will serve." A few days later, she boarded a transport vessel bound for Earth. Through the wide viewing window, she watched the blue and white planet grow larger. It was alive, too alive. Clouds swirled in chaotic patterns. Oceans churned endlessly. Lightning danced across storm fronts. The planet itself seemed emotional. Her escort officer, Commander Varel, spoke softly beside her. "I still cannot believe this, Princess. Humans. They still burn chemicals to travel space, and they smiled too much." Alindra gave a faint nod. "They are unpredictable, yes, but they have achieved much with little logic. Perhaps there is something we must learn. Or endure." She didn't believe her own words. When the ship landed on Earth, she was greeted by warm air and bright sunlight. Humans crowded the arrival platform, cheering, waving flags, shouting words she couldn't understand. Cameras flashed. Music played. It was chaos. Alindra flinched at the sound of laughter. No one among the Valari ever laughed so loudly. Then, stepping through the crowd, came Captain Daniel Hayes. He wore a white uniform, clean but simple, and a warm smile that looked genuine. He wasn't what she expected. No arrogance, no fear, just calm confidence. He bowed slightly. Not with rigid precision like a Valari, but with natural respect. "Princess Alindra Valar," he said in a steady voice, "welcome to Earth. It's an honor to meet you." Alindra studied him closely. His eyes, deep brown and alive, met hers without hesitation. Valari never held eye contact for long. It was seen as impolite. But Daniel looked at her as if he truly saw her. Not a symbol, not a title, but a person. She nodded coolly. "Captain Hayes, I am instructed to begin this alliance," he smiled again. "Then let's make sure it's a good one." Something in his tone, light, almost teasing, made her pause. It was not formal, not proper, yet somehow it felt right. The wedding was held in the United Terran Embassy Hall. Broadcast across both empires, Alindra stood beside Daniel as humans cheered and Valari delegates watched in silence. The human priest spoke of unity, compassion, and hope, words that had no direct translation in Valari language. When the ceremony ended, Daniel gently took her hand. His touch was warm, far warmer than any Valari's cold skin. A strange current passed through her, almost like static energy, but softer. She quickly pulled her hand back, hiding her confusion. Later, during the reception, humans laughed, danced, and hugged one another. Food filled the air with unfamiliar scents. Music, wild and unpredictable, echoed through the hall. Alindra sat at the edge of the celebration, her expression calm but her mind racing. How could creatures so loud, so emotional, survive this long? How could they thrive in such disorder? Daniel approached with 2 glasses of something fizzy. "You don't have to drink it," he said kindly. "But it's tradition to toast." She accepted 1 glass politely. "I have studied your customs. This drink has no logical purpose." He chuckled softly. "Most of what we do doesn't. But sometimes we do things just because they make us feel connected." "Connected," she repeated, tasting the unfamiliar word. He raised his glass. "To peace between our worlds." Alindra copied his gesture. To peace, she said, her voice steady, though her thoughts were not. The drink fizzed against her tongue. Strange, sharp, alive. Humans seemed to enjoy sensations for their own sake. Valari avoided such distractions. Yet for a brief moment she felt something she couldn't name. Over the next few days, Alindra stayed at the Earth Embassy complex adjusting to human life. Daniel was assigned as her personal liaison, part guide, part protector. She noticed how he treated everyone with the same quiet respect. Technicians, guards, even cleaning staff. Among Valari, hierarchy was everything. On Earth, respect flowed freely. One morning, Daniel took her to see the ocean. The water stretched endlessly, reflecting sunlight in waves of blue and silver. The sound was soft yet powerful, endless yet peaceful. Alindra had never seen anything like it. It's uncontrolled, she murmured. No system governs it, yet it moves with purpose. Daniel smiled. That's Earth, a little messy, but it works. She glanced at him, curious. Do all humans find beauty in disorder? Maybe, he said. But it's not really disorder. It's freedom. It's the same thing that lets us keep trying, even when logic says we should give up. Alindra frowned slightly. You defy logic often, then? He grinned. Every day. His words should have irritated her, but instead they made her curious. That night, unable to sleep, Alindra watched the city lights from her balcony. Human cities pulsed with life. Vehicles moving like rivers of fire, lights flickering like stars. There was no pattern, no perfect symmetry, yet somehow it all functioned. The Valari world was clean, ordered, and predictable. No surprises, no mistakes. But here, chaos created beauty. Her communicator blinked. It was a message from her father, the Valari High Chancellor. Alindra, remember your purpose. You are there for diplomacy, not fascination. These humans are volatile. Do not be influenced by their ways. She bowed her head respectfully to the hologram. Yes, father. But when the message ended, she looked out again at the glowing human city and wondered if her father was wrong. A week later, a diplomatic banquet was held. Valari officials and human leaders met to discuss trade, culture, and defense. Alindra sat beside Daniel at the long table. Halfway through the event, a power fluctuation dimmed the lights. Some guests murmured in confusion. Human technicians rushed to fix the issue. Alindra expected panic, but Daniel simply stood and began helping the staff himself. He wasn't above manual work, not even as a captain. He smiled at the workers, encouraged them, joked lightly until the tension faded. When the power returned, everyone applauded. Daniel just shrugged, laughing softly. Alindra found herself smiling, an expression she had never practiced. You are their leader, she said quietly. Yet you work beside them. That's what a leader should do, Daniel replied. We don't lead from above. We lead together. She considered that. Among the Valari, leaders were distant, untouchable symbols. Here, leadership meant connection, not separation. That night, as she returned to her quarters, Alindra paused before the mirror. For the first time, her own reflection looked strange to her. Cold, mechanical, distant. Humanity had begun to change her, not through force or logic, but through warmth. Through something she didn't yet understand. She thought of Daniel's smile, the human laughter, the chaotic beauty of the ocean. Maybe she thought emotion was not weakness. Maybe it was another kind of strength, but she quickly buried the thought. A Valari must not feel still. The idea refused to die. As she looked out at the stars that night, she whispered softly to herself, perhaps there is more power in the human heart than our science will ever explain. The stars twinkled back as if they agreed. Morning sunlight touched the glass walls of the Earth Embassy complex, painting everything in gold. Princess Alindra Velar stood on her balcony, watching the city below. Hovercars buzzed through the air. People hurried on the streets and laughter rose from somewhere far below. It was strange, she thought. Even with so much noise and chaos, there was life in every sound. Humans didn't hide emotion, they celebrated it. For Valari, such behavior would be shameful. But for humans, it was natural. As she turned away, her door chimed. Captain Daniel Hayes entered with his usual calm smile. Good morning, Princess. I hope you slept well. I did not, she replied simply. Your world is loud, he chuckled. Yes, it's never quiet here. But you'll get used to it. We call it the sound of life. Alindra gave a small frown, though inside she was curious. Humans used words like life and feeling so easily, as if emotions were tools, not weaknesses. "The council requests we attend the cultural summit today," she said. "They wish me to observe human behavior more closely." Daniel raised a brow. "So they sent you to study us?" "Yes, to understand what drives your people." "You are unpredictable," he smiled. "Then I'll make sure you get the full experience." The summit was held in New Geneva, a city filled with both humans and alien delegates. Colorful banners waved, holographic art floated in the air, and music from dozens of species blended into a wild mix of sound. Alindra moved through the crowd beside Daniel, her silver robes shining under the bright lights. Everywhere she looked, humans were laughing, hugging, arguing, and smiling. No order, no structure, yet somehow it all worked. A small human girl ran up to her holding a glowing flower. "You're the space princess, right?" Alindra blinked, unsure how to answer. "Yes. I am Princess Alindra Velar." The child grinned and handed her the flower. "Welcome to Earth." Before Alindra could respond, the girl ran off again, laughing. She turned to Daniel. "That child approached me without fear. Among my people, touching royalty is forbidden." Daniel nodded. "Here, titles don't mean much to children. They see everyone the same. Maybe that's not a bad thing." Alindra looked at the flower glowing softly in her hand. It pulsed with warmth. She didn't know why, but it made her feel lighter. Later, they attended a panel where human scientists presented new research about artificial gravity. Alindra listened carefully, analyzing every word. But what caught her attention wasn't the science. It was the way humans disagreed. One scientist challenged another openly. Voices rose, ideas clashed, laughter followed. Yet no one was angry. Valari debates were cold and calculated. Here it was almost like a dance of energy. "They argue," she whispered to Daniel, "but still respect each other." "That's how we learn," Daniel said. "Truth grows when ideas collide." Alindra watched as two humans shook hands after their debate. No hard feelings, no bitterness, only excitement to discover more. Perhaps logic alone wasn't the only path to progress. After the event, Daniel suggested a visit to a human market. The market was alive with color and sound. Stalls sold food, art, and strange machines. Musicians played instruments that filled the air with rhythm and emotion. Alindra walked carefully, trying not to show her discomfort. Everything was too close, too loud, too alive. A vendor called out, "Fresh fruit! Sweetest in the quadrant." He offered her a piece of orange fruit. Alindra hesitated, scanning it for toxins. Daniel laughed softly. "It's safe. Try it." She took a small bite and froze. The taste exploded across her senses, sweet and tangy, a burst of life she had never experienced before. "It's chaotic," she said slowly. "No balance, no pattern. And?" Daniel asked, smiling. "And it is pleasant," Daniel grinned. "Welcome to flavor." For the first time, Alindra felt something new, a kind of joy that had no logical source. As they returned to their transport, Alindra saw a group of humans helping an injured animal near the road. No one ordered them to stop. They simply acted, tearing fabric for bandages, comforting the frightened creature. She turned to Daniel, puzzled. "Why do they help? That animal is not theirs. There is no benefit." Daniel looked at her quietly. "Because we can't stand seeing something in pain. We help because it's right, not because it's useful." Alindra didn't answer. That logic did not exist in her world. Valari helped only if it served efficiency. But here compassion had value of its own. That night she couldn't stop thinking about it. The glowing flower, the scientist's laughter, the humans helping the animal. All of it echoed in her mind. Could emotions be more than disorder? Could they be strength? The next morning, Daniel invited her to a quiet place, a memorial garden by the sea. White stones marked names of humans who had died in past wars. Alindra looked around, silent. "You built monuments for the dead?" "Yes," Daniel said softly. "We honor them. We remember their sacrifices. But they are gone. What purpose does this serve?" He knelt before one of the stones, brushing his hand across the engraved name. "It reminds us that peace costs something. It makes us value it more." Alindra studied his expression. There was sadness in his eyes, but also pride. He wasn't afraid to feel it. "We erase records of failure," she said quietly. "We believe forgetting brings peace." Daniel shook his head. "Sometimes remembering is what keeps us human." The words struck something deep within her. A few days later, Alindra attended a joint council meeting via HoloLink. Valari leaders appeared as shimmering blue figures around her. Counselor Zerath's voice was sharp. "Princess, your reports are delayed." "Are you distracted by the humans?" Alindra bowed respectfully. "No, Counselor, I am," observing them closely. "Their behavior is unlike ours." "And what do you conclude?" She hesitated. Logic demanded one answer, but honesty demanded another. They are emotional, yet their emotion creates strength. Their unity is not forced, it is chosen. Zerath's expression hardened. "Dangerous thinking, Princess. Do not let their chaos infect your discipline." The holograms vanished. Alindra stood alone, her mind full of questions. Was emotion truly chaos? Or was it something deeper? Something her people had lost long ago. That evening, a strong storm rolled in from the sea. The wind howled, rain lashed against the windows, and thunder cracked the sky. Alindra watched from inside, mesmerized. The storm was wild, uncontained, yet beautiful. It reminded her of humans themselves. Daniel entered the room, dripping wet, carrying a blanket. "You should see the waves," he said. "They're huge tonight. Why were you outside?" She asked, surprised. "Helping the workers secure the equipment." "Didn't want anyone hurt. You risked yourself for them." He shrugged lightly. "It's what we do." Alindra looked at him in silence. His clothes were soaked, his hair messy, yet he smiled as if nothing was wrong. "You humans are illogical," she said finally. "You act without calculation." "Maybe," he replied, his voice gentle. "But sometimes heart matters more than reason." Her chest tightened at those words. She didn't understand why. The next day, they visited an art gallery. Humans painted scenes of sadness, hope, love, and loss. Colors clashed and blended like emotions themselves. One painting caught Alindra's eye. It showed a figure standing alone in the rain, reaching for a distant light. "What is the meaning?" she asked softly. The artist, an elderly woman, smiled. "It means we all search for something brighter, even when it hurts." Alindra stared at the painting for a long time. She could feel the emotion in it, not through logic, but through her heart. For the first time in her life, she understood why humans created art, not to explain the world, but to express what couldn't be explained. That night, Alindra and Daniel shared dinner on the balcony overlooking the ocean. The storm had passed and the sky was full of stars. "Captain Hayes," she began quietly, "I have spent my life believing that emotion was weakness. Yet your people seem to gain strength from it." Daniel looked thoughtful. "Emotion makes us fight harder, love deeper, and dream bigger. Logic keeps us alive, but emotion gives us reasons to live." She turned her gaze to the stars. "Perhaps my people have forgotten how to live." Daniel smiled gently. "Maybe that's why the universe brought you here, to remember." Alindra didn't respond. Her heart beat faster, and she didn't understand why. Later, alone in her room, she recorded a message in her private log. Observation: humans are not defined by logic. They are defined by connection. They create, protect, and sacrifice without clear reason. Yet their results defy all predictions. I cannot explain them through science. Perhaps they cannot be explained at all. She paused, then whispered, "Perhaps that is their greatest power." The glowing flower from the little girl still sat on her table, its soft light pulsing like a heartbeat. Alindra touched it gently, and for the first time she smiled. Not out of duty, but from something deeper she couldn't describe. She didn't know it yet, but she had begun to change. The skies above Earth glowed with strange colors. At first, people thought it was a beautiful light show, but scientists quickly realized the truth. It was the front wave of a cosmic storm, a massive energy surge from deep space. The storm was unlike anything known before. It moved faster than light and carried radiation strong enough to tear through shields and disrupt planetary systems. Every world in its path would burn. The Valari Union calculated the outcome. Their conclusion was simple: evacuate. The outer colonies, they said, were a logical loss, but humans refused. For them, leaving millions to die was not an option. Princess Alindra Valar stood inside the Earth Embassy's command center, her eyes fixed on the giant display screen. The swirling red storm filled half the view. It was coming. Beside her stood Captain Daniel Hayes, now wearing a reinforced exosuit. His face was calm but focused. Around them, human engineers worked fast, connecting wires, checking energy cores, shouting commands. Alindra frowned. You cannot stop this storm. Every calculation proves it. It is impossible. Daniel didn't look at her. Maybe, but we'll still try. Even if logic says you will fail? He turned to her, his eyes steady. Especially then. The humans called their plan Project Haven. It was simple in idea, impossible in practice. Build a giant planetary shield made from hundreds of connected satellites and old ship reactors. It would absorb the energy of the storm and protect the surface below. Valari scientists declared it foolish. Energy levels are too high, one said during a meeting. Your structure will collapse, Daniel only smiled. Then we'll make it stronger. Alindra could not understand. These people worked without fear. They faced certain destruction, yet they laughed, they joked, they believed. She watched as Daniel moved among his crew, patting shoulders, offering encouragement, fixing broken systems himself. He wasn't a commander giving orders. He was part of the team. It reminded her of what he once said. We don't lead from above. We lead together. And they followed him, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Days passed. The storm grew closer. The shield network was only half complete. Alindra worked beside Daniel, helping calculate energy patterns. Her Valari knowledge made her useful, and for the first time she felt part of something greater than protocol. Still, she couldn't stop questioning. Why do you keep building when the odds are zero? Daniel smiled faintly. Because zero isn't nothing, it's just the start of hope. His answer made no logical sense, yet it moved something inside her. When the main generator failed that night, he stayed awake for hours fixing it. His hands bled, his face was pale, but he didn't stop. Alindra tried to reason with him. Captain, you need rest. Later, he said simply, tightening a wire. People are counting on us. But you will die if you continue. He looked up at her with tired eyes. Then I'll die doing something that matters. The words echoed in her mind long after he walked away. Finally, the storm reached the edge of the solar system. The skies darkened. Energy waves shimmered in space like living fire. The Valari fleet retreated to safety, watching from afar. Only the humans stayed behind. Daniel stood in the central command dome, staring at the rising light in the distance. It's time, he said quietly. Alindra stood beside him, wearing a protective suit. This is madness, she whispered. No system can hold that much power. Then we'll make a new one, he replied with a grin. You ready, princess? She hesitated, then nodded. Ready. The storm hit. It was like the universe itself screaming. Waves of pure energy slammed into the satellite grid. The ground trembled. Every screen in the control room flickered. Technicians shouted. Sparks flew. Systems failed one by one. Alindra gripped the console tightly, watching readings spike. Shields at 90%, 75%. Daniel, the outer grid is collapsing. He was already moving, rerouting power manually. His hands flew across the controls. Redirect from the reserve batteries. Give me full link to the backup reactors. That will overload the system. She warned. Then we'll overload together. The humans around him cheered and worked faster. Alindra couldn't believe what she was seeing. Fear turned into courage, despair into strength. Every time a shield failed, someone volunteered to fix it, knowing they might not return. No one hesitated. Hours passed like minutes. The storm raged on. The Valari Council, watching from orbit, declared the mission lost. But Alindra refused to leave. She stayed beside Daniel, helping balance the final power core. Suddenly, a massive surge struck the grid. The entire command dome shook violently. Lights exploded. A section of the city went dark. We lost Sector 7, a technician shouted. I'll go, Daniel said immediately, grabbing his helmet. Alindra grabbed his arm. You can't, the radiation. Someone has to reset the relay or we lose everything. Her voice trembled slightly. Then let someone else, he looked at her gently. No one else knows the manual override. She opened her mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. For the first time she felt fear, not for herself but for him. Daniel. He smiled softly. Hey, we'll make it. Trust me. And before she could stop him, he was gone. Minutes felt like hours. The storm roared louder. Alindra watched his signal on the screen, a small blinking light moving through the chaos. Captain Hayes, respond, she called through the comm. Still here, came his voice, calm despite the noise. Almost there. Static filled the line. Then silence. "Daniel?" she whispered. No response. She felt something inside her break. A cold emptiness filled her chest, a feeling she had never known before. For the first time, Alindra understood what humans called fear of loss. She slammed her hand on the console. "Power transfer complete," shouted a technician. "The grid is stabilizing." The shield pulsed bright blue, pushing back against the storm. The reading showed impossible numbers, energy holding steady where logic said it couldn't. Alindra stared at the display through tears she didn't know she could shed. Humans were doing it. Against all reason, they were winning. Moments later, the doors opened. Daniel stumbled in, helmet cracked, face pale, but alive. Alindra ran to him, breaking every Valari rule of composure. "You're hurt." "Just a scratch," he said weakly, smiling. "Looks like it worked." He pointed at the main screen. The storm was fading, the shield still holding strong. The world below was safe. The humans in the room erupted in cheers. Some hugged, others cried openly. Alindra stood among them, her heart racing. Logic had said survival was impossible, but humanity had done it. Not through superior technology, but through something far greater. Belief. When the storm finally passed, the entire planet was covered in a strange, peaceful glow. The skies cleared and sunlight broke through the clouds. News spread across the galaxy. Humans had stopped the unstoppable. Valari scientists were silent. Their calculations had been wrong. Alindra and Daniel stood on a high platform overlooking the city. The damage was heavy, but the people were alive. "You did it," she said softly. Daniel looked at her. "No, we did it." She turned her eyes to the horizon, her voice trembling slightly. "You fought against reason, against certainty. You should have failed." "Maybe," he said, "but hope doesn't care about odds." She looked at him, truly seeing him, not as a soldier or a diplomat, but as something far more extraordinary. "Your people, they are unlike any I have known." "We're just human," he said with a shrug. "No," she whispered. "You are something beyond that." That night, Alindra recorded her report to the Valari Council. Observation: human resistance defies logic. Their strength does not come from technology or numbers, but from unity. They act from belief, not reason. This makes them unpredictable and unstoppable. She paused, her gaze distant. If such power comes from emotion, then perhaps we have been blind for too long. Her voice softened. I begin to understand why the universe fears them, and why I cannot stop admiring them. She closed the log and looked out at the stars. The storm had gone, leaving the heavens clear and beautiful. Beside her, Daniel approached quietly. Can't sleep? No, she said. I was thinking about everything that happened. We got lucky, he said. She turned to him, shaking her head. No, it was not luck. It was something else, something beyond logic. Something human, he smiled gently. Then maybe that's worth believing in. Alindra smiled faintly. The warmth in her chest grew stronger. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just learning about humanity, she was becoming part of it. The storm had ended, but its memory stayed. Across Earth, cities repaired their wounds. Broken towers were rebuilt, homes restored, and gardens bloomed again. People laughed, cried, and celebrated their survival. Humanity had faced extinction and won. But for Princess Alindra Velar, the true storm now raged inside her. She sat alone on the balcony of the Earth Embassy, staring at the sunrise. The sky was soft gold and the air smelled of wet soil after rain. Birds sang. Everything was alive. Yet Alindra felt restless. She had been raised to think through logic, to trust numbers and reason. But what she had witnessed during the storm defied every calculation. Her people had ever made, humans had survived, because they believed they could. That idea terrified her and fascinated her. Her mind kept returning to one man, Captain Daniel Hayes, the man who had risked his life without hesitation, the man who smiled in the face of doom, the man who made her believe that perhaps logic was not everything. When she walked into the command dome that morning, the atmosphere was light. Technicians joked, music played softly, and workers repaired consoles destroyed by the storm. Daniel stood in the center, surrounded by people congratulating him. His uniform was torn, but his grin was wide. When he saw her, his smile softened. Princess Alindra, Or should I say hero of Sector 6? She frowned slightly. I only provided data. You stabilized the energy matrix, he said. That saved millions. You give too much credit, she said quietly. And you give too little to yourself, he replied, eyes kind. Alindra felt a strange warmth spread in her chest. It was uncomfortable but pleasant. For a moment their eyes met and everything around them faded. Later the Earth government invited the Valari delegation for a joint celebration. The event was held in a massive dome filled with light, flags, and laughter. Human soldiers stood beside Valari diplomats, two species that had once barely tolerated each other, now sharing the same stage. Alindra wore a long silver dress, her royal crest pinned at the shoulder. Daniel, in his simple dark uniform, looked out of place among nobles, but somehow he drew every eye. When he approached her, she noticed the faint scar on his cheek. It hadn't fully healed from the storm. You should rest, she said. You are still injured. Rest is for people who've finished their work, he replied with a grin. We've only just started. Started? Yeah, he said, glancing around the room. Peace doesn't end with survival. It starts with trust. He looked at her meaningfully. And that's something we have to build, together. Her heart beat faster. Hours later, after the speeches ended, the crowd began to disperse. Alindra stepped outside into the cool night. The city lights shimmered like stars below. Daniel followed her. They stood silently for a while. Beautiful, isn't it? He said. Yes, she whispered. Your planet. It feels alive. Ours is quiet, cold, perfect, but not alive like this. He chuckled. Yeah, Earth is messy, unpredictable, but that's what makes it beautiful. She looked at him. You see beauty in chaos? Always, he said softly. Because chaos means life, and life means hope. Her lips curved slightly. You speak like a philosopher, not a soldier. You'd be surprised how often soldiers think about life, he said. The wind blew gently through her hair. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a princess or a diplomat. She felt human. The next day, news spread of a new crisis. Of Valari. Extremist fleet was approaching Earth. They refused to accept peace and called Alindra a traitor for allying with primitives. Their ships carried enough firepower to destroy continents. The Valari Council sent a message. We cannot control them. You must leave Earth immediately. Alindra stared at the message in silence. Leave? Daniel asked. Yes, they will not stop until I am gone. They believe I have shamed my people. By saving billions? Daniel's voice hardened. That's insane. To them, emotion is weakness, she said quietly. And I have shown too much. He stepped closer. You're not weak, Alindra. You're the strongest person I know, her heart jumped. No one had ever said her name like that, softly, with meaning. If you stay, you'll be in danger, she said. Then I stay in danger, he replied simply. Because Earth stands with its friends, she shook her head. You don't understand. The Valari fleet can destroy your world. Then we'll fight, he said, eyes steady. That's what humans do. 3 days later, the alien fleet entered the solar system. Massive silver warships glided toward Earth, their weapons glowing with cold light. Every space station went on alert. Human warships rose from orbit, smaller, older, but ready. Daniel took command of the defense line. Alindra stood beside him, refusing to hide. They will not negotiate, she said. Their leader, Admiral Sarath, is extreme. Then we'll talk his language, Daniel said grimly. He looked at her once more. You sure you want to be up here? If I must face my people, I will face them as myself, he smiled. Spoken like a true human, she didn't correct him. The first message came through, Sarath's voice cold and sharp. Alindra Veller, you have betrayed our ways. Step forward and surrender yourself. The humans will be spared. Alindra's hands clenched. Sarath, she replied. You speak of betrayal, yet you bring war to a world that only wanted peace. Peace is for equals, Sarath said. Not for savages. Daniel's eyes darkened. Careful with your words, Admiral. We're not as helpless as you think. Your bravery is admirable, Sarath sneered, but pointless. We have technology older than your species. And we have something you'll never understand, Daniel said. And what is that? Daniel smiled faintly. The will to fight for someone we care about. The channel closed. Alindra felt her throat tighten. She turned to him slowly. You mean, yeah, he said quietly. I'm talking about you. Her breath caught. She didn't know what to say. For a Valari, such words were unthinkable, but for her, in that moment, they meant everything. The battle began. Valari ships opened fire, raining plasma beams across space. Human vessels moved fast, dodging and countering with missiles and railguns. It was chaos, fire and light across the void. Inside the command ship, Daniel and Alindra coordinated the defense. Redirect power to the forward shields. He shouted, "Done," she replied, fingers flying over the console. A massive explosion rocked the hull. Systems flickered. "They've breached the lower orbit." "I see it." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Hold the line." For every human ship destroyed, 2 more joined the fight. Ordinary people volunteered their old freighters, cargo haulers, even mining ships, all armed with makeshift weapons. The Valari expected surrender. Instead, they met defiance. Admiral Sarath's flagship fired a devastating beam toward Earth. It tore through clouds, aimed at the capital below. Alindra gasped. "He's targeting civilians." Daniel slammed his hand on the console. "Not while I'm breathing." He turned to her. "I need your help with something crazy." "That seems to be your specialty," she said, almost smiling. "We're going to ram his weapon core." Her eyes widened. "That will kill us. If we don't, millions die." "Easy choice." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I'll die with you." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because I believe in you." For the first time, Daniel was speechless. Their ship turned sharply, engines burning bright. They flew straight toward the enemy flagship. Sarath's voice came again. "You cannot stop us." "Watch us," Daniel said. They plunged through enemy fire. The hull shook. Systems screamed. Sparks burst across the control room. "Energy core at maximum," Alindra called. "Hold steady," Daniel shouted. The Valari flagship loomed larger, like a silver mountain in space. At the last second, Alindra touched his hand. "Daniel, whatever happens, thank you." He squeezed her hand gently. "No, thank you for showing me what peace really means." They smiled at each other, then hit the final command. A blinding light filled space. When the light faded, the Valari fleet was gone, disabled by the shockwave from their own weapon. Daniel's ship drifted among the wreckage, silent. Rescue teams found them hours later. Both alive, barely. When Alindra opened her eyes in the medbay, Daniel sat beside her, smiling weakly. "We made it," he whispered. "You never stop surviving, do you?" she murmured. "Guess it's a habit," she smiled faintly. "Your kind truly are unstoppable," he laughed softly. "Told you we were stubborn." Then her voice softened. "Daniel, when this is over, what will you do?" He shrugged. "Maybe rebuild. Maybe rest. Maybe see what happens next." She hesitated. Then quietly, "Then I will stay." "Stay?" "With you." "On Earth," his eyes widened. "You'd give up your title?" "If it means I can learn what it means to be human." "Yes." He reached for her hand. "Then welcome home, Princess." The morning sun shone over Earth, soft and golden, as if celebrating the end of the chaos. Princess Alindra Valar stood on the balcony of the rebuilt embassy, overlooking the city. The streets were alive with people repairing homes, planting gardens, rebuilding markets. Every face held hope. Every movement carried life. Beside her, Captain Daniel Hayes sipped his morning coffee, his uniform casual, sleeves rolled up. His eyes, warm and steady, watched the city like a guardian. "The storm is over," Alindra said quietly. "Over for now," Daniel replied. "But recovery takes time," she nodded. Unlike the Valari world she had known, recovery here was about people, not perfection. Mistakes were accepted. Effort was celebrated. "Your people," she said slowly, "they are unstoppable. Not because of weapons or technology, but because they refuse to give up on each other." Daniel smiled faintly. "You've noticed. Most aliens never do." Alindra watched a small child run past, laughing as she held her father's hand. For the first time, Alindra understood what humans truly fought for: connection, life, hope. Weeks passed. The Valari fleet had withdrawn, and the extremists were contained. Earth became a symbol of resistance and unity. Valari and humans worked side by side, repairing damage and rebuilding trust. Alindra participated fully, no longer just an observer. She coordinated defense systems, taught human engineers Valari energy protocols, and even joined patrols above Earth in simulation missions. The humans didn't treat her as untouchable royalty. They treated her as a partner. It was confusing and freeing. One afternoon, she and Daniel worked in the command room. "Sector 6 energy grid is stable," Alindra said, pointing at the display. "Good," Daniel said, rubbing his tired eyes. "Couldn't have done it without you." "You make it sound like I had a choice," she teased. "You did," he replied, smiling. "You chose to help." Alindra felt her heart skip. She had never realized that choice could carry so much meaning. Then came a message from the Valari High Council. "Princess Alindra Valar, your actions have shocked the Union. We request your immediate return. The human alliance is dangerous. You must come home." Alindra read it aloud. "Dangerous?" Daniel asked, frowning. "To them, yes," she replied. "They see humans as chaotic and emotional. I understand them differently now." "And you won't go back?" She shook her head. "No, not yet. Not when there's still work to do here. Not when I finally understand what it means to fight for life, not rules." He reached for her hand gently. "Then stay. We'll build something better, together." For the first time in her life, Alindra felt that she had a real choice, and for the first time, she wanted to choose for herself, not her people, not protocol. The first official joint mission took place a week later. Humans and Valari worked side by side to neutralize remaining extremist ships hidden in distant asteroid belts. Alindra stood on the bridge, her silver uniform now practical and reinforced, her hair tied back. Daniel approached, nodding. "Ready?" he asked. "I have never been more ready," she replied. They launched into space together. The stars stretched endlessly around them. "Do you ever wonder," Alindra asked quietly, "if my people could ever change?" "They will," Daniel said, "if you show them what it means to fight with heart, not just reason." Alindra felt warmth rise in her chest. She realized then that change didn't have to come from fear or punishment. It could come from example. The joint fleet encountered the extremists near a massive asteroid field. The battle was tense but different from before. Valari ships moved with precision, humans with daring. Alindra coordinated the hybrid strategy, combining Valari shields with human maneuver tactics. At the final moment, the leader of the extremists aimed a weapon at a human colony. "We cannot let them destroy civilians," Alindra said firmly. Daniel nodded. "Then we act." Using the combined fleet, they executed a daring maneuver. Valari weapons disabled the extremists' navigation, while human ships rammed key engines. The extremists surrendered. Alindra watched as both humans and Valari celebrated, not victory over each other, but over hatred and destruction. "They fought together," she whispered. "Because they care," Daniel said. "That's the power you've been seeing." Alindra turned to him, her eyes softening. "And I've been part of it." Back on Earth, the celebrations were modest. Humans and Valari rebuilt together, sharing culture, knowledge, and laughter. Alindra and Daniel walked through the city streets, mingling freely. Humans touched her arm, asked questions, laughed at her awkward attempts at casual conversation. Valari observers watched silently, still learning, still calculating. "You're happy here," Daniel said, glancing at her. I am," she admitted softly. "Because I understand, I feel connection." He squeezed her hand gently. "Good, that's human strength." Her heart fluttered. Strength through connection. Life through belief. Chaos that created hope. She had once believed that emotion was weakness. Now she knew it was the greatest power of all. Weeks later, Alindra addressed both humans and Valari in a formal assembly. She stood tall, silver robes replaced with practical attire, symbolizing both her royal heritage and her commitment to cooperation. "We have survived a storm that logic said would destroy us," she began. "We have fought enemies who believed division was power. But we learned something far greater. Unity, belief, and courage can overcome even the impossible." Her words were clear, simple, yet carried weight. Humans taught us that life is not controlled by perfection. Valari can learn from that. Together we can create a galaxy where peace is not imposed but chosen. The assembly erupted in applause. Humans cheered openly. Valari remained composed, but she could see respect in their eyes. After the assembly, Daniel took her aside. "You've inspired them," he said. "Not me," she replied softly. "Us, together." He nodded, his eyes locking on hers. Then what happens now? Now, she said, we build a future where choice matters, where hearts guide reason, not the other way around. For the first time, Alindra allowed herself a full smile. And me? Daniel asked with a grin. She laughed lightly. You'll be by my side, and you'll teach me how to be human every day. He took her hand, holding it firmly. Every day, months passed. Peace strengthened. Human and Volari scientists worked together, developing energy systems, defense networks, and exploration programs. Trade flourished. Education spread across worlds. Alindra remained on Earth. Her title unchanged, but her perspective transformed. She no longer ruled by command, but by example, teaching both species that connection and compassion could be stronger than fear. Every day she saw people grow, create, and care for each other. Every day she remembered the storm, the fear, the courage, and the love she had discovered. And every day she looked at Daniel Hayes, not just a human, not just a captain, but a partner who had shown her the true power of the human heart. One evening, as the twin suns set over the city, Daniel and Alindra stood on the balcony holding hands. Do you ever miss your old life? He asked gently. Sometimes, she admitted. But I've found something better. Life, not perfection. Love, not duty. Then it was worth it, he said. She nodded. Yes, because I finally understand what it means to be human, and to fight for something greater than myself. Then we keep fighting, he said softly. Together, she smiled, her heart full. For the first time, she felt complete, not just as a princess, but as a being capable of hope, courage, and love. The stars above twinkled in quiet agreement,